Jesus is king. That's true. Does anyone else think that it's a little bit weird that the enduring slogan there is Jesus is king when we all know that, like, Jesus wouldn't be king? Listen, I know it's from the Bible, and I know that when they say Jesus is king, they mean Jesus is the heavenly king, okay? But he would make, like, an awful king on earth. We all know that, right? Like, Christians know that, right? Because, like, a real king in real life would have to be like, we have finite resources. We have to make tough decisions, you know? And Jesus is too much of a hippie. He wouldn't have, like, the sauce for the tough leadership decisions. Jesus was fully man and fully divine, okay? But being fully man means that he would struggle with those decisions, as he did as a man before he rose again. He's King of Kings. Yeah, so shouldn't the slogan be Jesus is King of Kings rather than Jesus is King? Because to me, Jesus is King makes him sound like a war god. It's like it makes him sound like he's a conquering deity, which is bullshit, right? If you say Jesus is King of Kings, then it's like, okay, so he's above that designation. He's the king of the. I think that sounds a lot nicer too. I don't think Jesus would have to worry about resources. He can literally duplicate things like with the bread and the fish. Do you think God was pissed with him when he got up there after that? God was like, listen, Earth is a morality test for mortals. If you just give people free shit, you can't see how they act when they're fighting over finite resources. You have to, come on, like, that was unfair. No one else is going to get that. Like, you were the one guy, and now for all time afterwards, humans are going to have like a non-magic morality test. Imagine being Judas, man. Imagine being the one guy who wouldn't have to take divinity on faith, and you still fuck it up. Couldn't be me. I'm not Urashimiya Battler. Holy shit. Umineko, but in in Nazareth or whatever. That would be fucking funny. Jesus Christ trying to convince Battler over and over again that he is the son of God, and he's like, Battler's like, you could have fit 2 loaves of bread, like a second loaf of bread might have been up your sleeve. Oh man, that would be fucking funny. What's Umineko even about? I don't fucking know. I'm only 4 chapters in. I'm only like 800,000 words in. Big fan. I'm working on it. Been watching Joseph Anderson play it. After 2,000 years, Jesus still reigns. Okay, but that's the thing. Like, I feel like you're misselling Jesus Christ, right? Like, Jesus Christ, he took the original, he bore the original sin, thus freeing all of us from it and allowing us to, like, carve our own path morally, okay? Like, I get that, okay? He tanked that. But, like, reigns? Jesus is king, Jesus reigns. All of these things make it seem like Jesus is making our decisions for us. But the whole point is that he wasn't, right? I'm not trying to contradict you, like, in a divinity studies way. I'm just saying, as an atheist, I never really got that rhetoric. Like, because I thought the whole point of Christ was that he was meant to be like a gift to man that was squandered, but he was so selfless that his final act was redeeming humanity for its fundamental sin, thus allowing all of us to live out a morality test on earth to determine whether our souls are worthy to join him in the kingdom of heaven or go down to hell and get poked with sticks or whatever, you know? I just don't really get the Jesus reigns stuff. Like, I don't understand where that comes from. It's Protestant slop. Do Catholics say stuff like that? Do Catholics... No, Catholics say Jesus is king, don't they? Or is that just like trad cats? Catholic converts? It's just the trad cats? Okay. Polish Catholics do? Catholics say he's King of Kings. But King of Kings sounds fine to me. That, to me, sounds fine. Because that doesn't make it sound like he's ruling over you. That's just a reaffirmation that, like, beyond the mortal plane, beyond, like, mortal authority, he presides, you know? Which makes sense. Orthodox don't say it for sure. Yeah, but no one knows what the fuck Orthodox people be about. Big hats? Looking kind of Muslim-y? Nobody knows. Sorry about, like, Constantinople or whatever. Still feel bad about that. 1453, worst year of my life. You know it, brother. You know it. Jesus King is just another tool to feed people in need of monarchism. All I'm saying is that if I was a Christian and I believed in Christ, and I'm not and I don't, but if I was and I did, I would never want to say stuff like Christ is king, because that shit to me feels like a total rejection of the point of his message, not just in the sense that he was a hippie or whatever, but if the whole thing here is a morality test, we're meant to make our own decisions. Yeah, king is just so earthly. It feels beneath him, honestly. Jesus is king. A lot of guys have been king. King? That's a hereditary position. That's a lot of idiot, water-brained, incestuous numbskulls have been king. King of kings is a little more lofty. It's a poor translation of the Greek line that loses some of the context. Okay. Well. Did you know there's still parts of Jesus's crucifix that exist today? Well, like, allegedly his crucifix, but sure. I think I probably believe that Jesus existed and was crucified. That he was like a cult leader of kind. I just mean cult because Christianity was small back then, obviously. And it kind of grew from there. I heard this once from Twitter. I don't know if it's true, but like, I heard one of the reasons historians believe Christ was real was that back then, nobody would choose to make up a story about how their god was a pussy who died like a bitch. Because back then, all the gods were like war gods. Like, if you go in, like, all the pagan religions up north or whatever, it's like, oh, my god's like a huge dude with a hammer. Well, my god's like a tree that shoots lightning or whatever. And then you're like, well, my god was a humble carpenter who was executed unjustly after being betrayed by a friend. But he, like, loves us, you know? So the idea being, why would you totally make that up? You would have to have some kind of core belief. That's not a good, like, opening line to proselytize over in an era when people mostly like made gods to mimic the behavior of men, you know? I don't know. The main evidence is there's a ton of secondary writing from lots of non-Christians 10 to 50 years later, mainly Romans complaining about the new crazy Jewish group. Yeah, I mean, that's as good of evidence as any. So a guy lived and died, you know? He must have been pretty cool back then, though, right? Like, even if the whole thing, if it's just like a random guy, he must have been pretty cool to inspire all those people. I thought it was an anti-Roman cult. Well, it was, right? Because the Romans believed in the war gods. That was the thing. Like, the Romans, they literally had a god of war, right? Ares. Wait, no, that's the Greek god of war. Who is the Roman god of war? Mars. That's right. Thank you. Yeah, they had the planetary gods. But yeah, like all the Roman gods were all just like big swaggering muscle dudes up on Roman Mount Olympus or whatever. I'm sorry, I don't know shit about the Roman pantheon. I think a lot of people don't, because the Greek pantheon's been a lot more enduring in popular culture, which is funny. Probably because Christianity took over the Roman Empire, right? Otherwise, the Roman pantheon would probably be like much more well known. In the Bible, Jesus had to explain to his followers time and time again that he didn't mean he was going to kill all Romans, but that he was the king in heaven, not on earth. He was so real for that. They deified their emperors and forced people to include them in their pantheon, which for monotheists was a big no-no. Yeah, monotheism also was, like, not popular back then. Polytheists are so funny. What's that anecdote we read about? We literally read it on Wikipedia. That when the conquistadors went over to the New World and talked with the Aztecs and the other Mesoamerican tribes or whatever, they talked about Jesus Christ, and after they figured out the translation bit, the Mesoamerican tribes were like, oh, you have a god called Jesus. That's sick, dog. Like, here's our gods. We got, like, big flaming... Your god's like a scrawny guy who's on a cross. Our god's like this big, like, fire lizard with wings. We've got, like, crazy shit like that. But that's cool, too, you know? They just totally folded him into the pantheon. They were like, okay, I guess there's a big island somewhere out east, and they have their own god. It's pretty funny to think about. You sure about that? Well, yeah, like, wouldn't that make sense? A lot of monotheistic religions, for them, like, a god was like a physical thing that existed somewhere on the earth and fulfilled a physical role. Like, a lot of old pagan gods were like that. This is the god of the lightning and the thunder and the rain and so on. For the Japanese Shinto, they're like, damn, every fucking river is actually a dragon. Every rock has, like, a little spirit gnome in it or something, you know? Don't be mean to the tree or its ghost will attack you. You know? So, of course, like, sure, yeah, you come from across the sea, you've got a god over there. Sure, okay, I guess that's a god over there. It's animism? Yeah, I mean, if it keeps you respecting your shrines, I guess. it's funny because old Judaism acknowledges the existence of other gods. Yeah, that's true, right? In the Old Testament, they were like, okay, we know there's lots of gods, but this one's like the real deal. Wasn't it kind of like that in the Prince of Egypt? Because like, okay, in the Prince of Egypt, I think it's a little bit ambiguous whether or not the Egyptians have deities, because their priests are kind of like tricksters. Like it's clear they're using like flash powder and like tricks of the light and stuff to do their miracles. But I think there's also kind of an implication of real power present there, just very, very minimal compared to the power of God. Judaism is not monotheistic, it's henotheistic. Well, I think now it's monotheistic, right? I don't think there are any Jews praying to like other gods out there. I mean, it's in practice. Just back then, people thought gods were everywhere. They were in your fucking soup bowl, you know? Prince of Egypt is Christian propaganda. I mean, it's a good story. I don't know. Prince of Egypt is probably the only piece. Well, I mean, it's I guess technically it's like Jewish propaganda, but like you can, it's all Abrahamic. It's one of the only like big high budget pieces of like religious media that treats it more like mythology than theology, and I think that's the reason why people like it. It doesn't preach, basically. It just treats it as though like this is a cool story that this is like a cool lore, you know. I don't think it's really good propaganda because like nobody believes in that Old Testament God anymore, really. Like when Jews and Christians talk about God, neither of them are talking about God like parentheses the guy who killed all them kids end parentheses. Like, obviously, that's still part of the broader mythology, but that's not really what they're like. That's not entirely what they're talking about. What about Muslims? I don't know as much about Islam. I haven't seen Islamic Prince of Egypt. When they make Prince of Egypt, except it's about Muhammad, and I assume they're going to have to leave out a few parts of that, you know, then maybe I'll learn more. I don't know. American Christians do? No, not really. Not really, no. American Christians do not, like, they only pull from the Old Testament to be homophobic or whatever. For the most part, when American Christians are talking about God, they're talking about, like, Jesus Christ. Well, they're not even talking about the Bible, man. No one reads the fucking Bible. That shit's lame. It's boring, okay? No one reads that shit. But even then, that's not the Bible. That's the Torah or whatever.